Montel Bean Life Science Museum. We have a good and important topic today. We're going to talk about conservation at home. What are some things that we can do to be better stewards of the environment? So let's first get into the nitty-gritty. Let's talk about reduce, reuse, recycle. These are the 3 R's. You guys probably know what they mean, but for those who are a little bit new or a little bit younger, reduce meaning we want to use less of certain things that we just use a lot. Try to take down our consumption rate. Reuse, we can use things again so that we don't have to use new. And recycle, we know recycling is okay. We're going to be making sure that we can take certain items like aluminum or paper, and essentially recycling is reusing them in another form. They're just repurposed. So I have a big list of a few things that we can do. We're going to talk about a little bit why each one of those is important and kind of what we can do. So if you're not recycling, a lot of the cities here in Utah County, they don't have a recycling program in the way that you can put your recycling on the street and it gets picked up with your trash. So you can make your own recycling bin and go to the recycle center, which is awesome. We need to be using our reusable water bottles and our lunch boxes, you guys. We don't need to use any paper bags or keep reusing our water bottles. We can just use the same one. It'd be so good. Using scratch paper. This is a good one, especially since we're doing homeschool right now and we're using Zoom University for some of us. Just flip your pieces of paper over. You don't need a full notebook to be doing your homework, or if you're just jotting down a list of things you can do for the day, you can put it on the back of a receipt, anything like that, and you can use that paper again. We can eat local and eat fresh, so make sure that you're going to your farmer's market, which is another one on here. We're eating meat sparingly. That saves on water and also just CO2 emissions as well, but supporting our local farmers who are giving us the freshest food, often with less pesticides and less water. Drought-tolerant plants in the garden. We're going to get into a bigger conversation about water here in Utah for a second, but this is just conserving water. Our reusable grocery bags. We're going to bring down our plastic usage. You can use your egg cartons for seed starters or for fire starters. So many things. Your egg cartons can be used in so many ways because it is recycled paper. Your egg carton used to be maybe the newspaper. Who knows? Maybe it was toilet paper. Who's to say? This is a cool one, you guys. Using the hose instead of using your sprinklers. As we know, in Utah, sprinklers, they're sprinkling everywhere and they're going down the sidewalk, not actually watering plants. So what you could do is turn off your sprinklers and take the time to water individually with your hose so the water is more controlled. You can see it. You're not drowning your plants and you're also not wasting water watering the sidewalk. We can walk and bike instead of driving. That's awesome. Walk to school, especially right now if you need to take a break from your online classes. Just take a walk to the store instead of driving there. Get your brain thinking. It'll be so good. And the last one, which we're going to go into a little bit more detail, is composting. But let's just have a moment and talk about water in Utah. Most of this state is a desert. The majority of the state is a desert. Water is a huge conversation in Utah always, and so we need to be actively conscious and aware of the way that we use our water. And so there are some small things that we can do. Turn the water off when you brush your teeth. Use your hose. If you're going to soccer practice or anything and there's a little bit of water left in your water bottle, throw it in the plants. Don't run it down the drain. Make sure that it goes somewhere. Use it wisely and cherish it because these are resources that are not infinite. They are finite and we need to be aware of the way that we use them. So think about these things. Choose something to do. Marin is going to give us an activity and kind of talk more about composting. But think about what you can do to be a better steward of the environment just in your own home.
All right, guys, so for our activity this week, I want you guys to do one of these things that Sarah talked about. Now, some of them are a little bit harder than others, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. Mainly, we're going to be talking about composting. Now, you might have heard of composting, but may have never tried it before. If you live in somewhere that doesn't have a garden or even a yard, if you live in an apartment, you can still compost. So here's what you do. If you live in a yard, you can pick a specific spot in your yard that will become the compost pile, and that totally works for this. Or if you want your compost to be inside, all you have to do is get a container that you'll keep either on your counter or in your freezer. It doesn't have to be a huge container. It can be something fairly small. Think like coffee can size. So about this big is totally perfect. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna put you're gonna put some dirt in there to get it started, and then you're gonna put in any scraps from vegetables, from fruit. You can put in eggshells, you can put in napkins, you can put in cardboard. All of those things can go into your compost pile. All right, there are some things you can't put in a compost pile, things like anything oily. You can't put in like plastics or anything like that. You can't put in raw meat. So you can look up a list of things that you shouldn't put in your compost pile. And the reason you can't put those things in there is because it's gonna kill the bacteria that are breaking down all your good composting stuff. It's breaking it down back into soil. So that's the whole point of composting, is we're gonna take these items, we're gonna turn them into soil. So you have a banana peel from your lunch, go ahead and stick it back into your lunch box, and when you get home, put it in your compost pile. If you have one that's outside, you can even add worms to your compost pile and they'll help break it up as well. When you put it on your counter or in your freezer, just make sure that it has a lid and that the lid has holes in it, because it does have to have, it's going to release gases and it's going to need oxygen as well. So you will need to do that. If you're worried about smell, you can easily buy some filters for it. But if you're also emptying it out fairly regularly, then you won't have to worry too much about the smell. So if you're keeping it on your counter or in your freezer, once it gets full, you can do one of two things. You can either continue to turn that into dirt, let it decompose fully, and you can use it for your own garden or for plants that you have in your house, or you can take it to places where they will compost it for you. So you've just been collecting your compost, where you say, okay, these are all things that can be composted. We're gonna save those up and then take them to where they can be composted. So that's another option you can do. But that's gonna be our activity this week, is to do something to reduce, reuse, or recycle, and maybe try out making a compost pile. But until then, we'll see you guys next week.